And the minute I started painting, it was like I found who I was.
He was born a wheat farmer's son on the windswept prairies of Saskatchewan during the Great Depression in 1935. Otto Donald Rogers became one of Canada's preeminent modernist artists. The renowned art critic Clement Greenberg met Rogers early in his career and described him as a big attack painter. His work has a kind of magic about it, said Sir Anthony Caro, a renowned British sculptor. A devout Baha'i, both Rogers' deep faith and the dynamic landscape he grew up in were reflected in his uniquely beautiful work.
Well, I grew up in a very isolated district of Saskatchewan called Kelfield, a farming district, and we had a very large wheat farm. At least it was large by those standards in those days. I seem to be more of an observer of the patterns of life rather than a participant. In fact, maybe this is part of my artistic makeup, that of the observer. But I was very conscious of this as a child, of being a kind of element, conscious element in nature. And that element was absorbing and taking in the environment. And I was very aware of the shifts and patterns from a very early age of the weather. Of course, you are aware of that anyway in the prairies because it's so very dramatic. But I took great delight in the kind of symphony of movement that was continually occurring around myself in a farm environment.
Otto Rogers used to doodle in the margins of his school textbooks, but he didn't take art classes until he was obliged to do so in Teachers College. His art teacher, Winona Mulcaster, believed Rogers had a special talent.
She took me into the library and showed me the work of Matisse and Picasso and Paul Klee, the work of modern artists, modern 20th century artists. And she said, "This is very great art, this is very good." And I looked at it and it really inspired me. So I accepted it as important art. I didn't question it because it gave me such a powerful feeling. So I was very inspired by 20th century art, which is not surprising. I was born in the 20th century.
Rogers' teachers encouraged his father to send Otto to studio art school in Wisconsin. He flourished there and acquired both his BA and his MA in fine art. At graduate school, Otto met the woman who would become his partner for the next 60 years. Barbara Nelson was a Baha'i, and Otto embraced her family's faith at age 23. The couple would have 4 children together. Following graduation, Rogers began teaching at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. He remained there for 29 years, finally becoming the head of the art department. Rogers was also a key organizer in setting up the Emma Lake workshops in Saskatchewan, which attracted some of North America's finest artists. At the peak of his artistic career, the couple moved to Israel to work at the International Teaching Center of the Baha'i Faith. Rogers published and lectured in 35 different countries. Finally, to live closer to family, Otto and Barbara returned to Canada and moved to Prince Edward County. It is here, in a beautiful waterside studio, designed by his son-in-law, architect Siamak Hariri, that Otto created his final work.
You don't look at art and say, what is it? You open yourself and allow yourself to experience it. Because it's an arrangement of space and movement and texture and color and light. Its purpose is not simply to depict.
As a deeply spiritual man, Otto Rogers would often begin his paintings by meditating with a Baha'i passage in mind. His work could change course in the midst of its making as he followed the flow of ideas. For this reason, he would name his paintings after they were resolved. When he died suddenly in 2019, a large number of his most recent work remained untitled. Rogers had an uncanny ability to present the familiar without necessarily representing it. His mode of expression, his masterful use of acrylic paint and collage, is uniquely his own. His dark, earthy palette and abstracted elements reminiscent of the prairie landscape contribute to the sublime grounding quality in Rogers' work. He did borrow from history and counts the Washington Color School artists among his strongest influences. There are also visible nods to Cubism and Constructivism. But what is incredibly unique about Rogers' practice is that his entire body of work holds together cohesively. What Rogers' art reminds us of is artwork by Rogers. This is why, as Clement Greenberg stated, he's a big attack painter. While he reflected the external world, he painted from the inside. His calling to explore his religious practice through his painting is part of what makes him quintessentially modern. For more than 6 decades, Otto Rogers never compromised his authentic expression.
A person's art is as complicated as they are.